for another trade deadline frenzy episode from DNVR Avalanche, talking about another center, Adam Henrique, definitely one of the more experienced older ones on the list, but potentially, certainly I know AJ thinks he's a good fit. You can bring up his numbers in Anaheim this year. He's been pretty darn solid for them, and we'll get into the conversation about that extra year on the contract too, I'm sure. But let's start with why he makes sense for Colorado.
I want to say I think this is the only player on the list that has a contract beyond the season.
Yep.
Anaheim would have to retain on that.
Of course.
The Avs are not going to pay Adam Henrique $5.8 million next year. But if they retain up to the 50%, you're talking about paying a little under $3 million next season for a 2C.
Yep.
And if Alex Newhook makes the big jump, then a 3C. And I think that right there alone makes this a really intriguing possibility, because you've not only helped with this year's team, but you've taken a step towards helping next year's club at a really reasonable price. When we saw the Kadri deal got made, that was part of the appeal. The Avs got 3 years of Nazem Kadri at under $5 million for a bona fide 2C. And with Adam Henrique, you're talking about the same thing. Now, Henrique is a little bit older, a little later in his career than Kadri was when the Avs got him, but not significantly so. It's only a couple of years. It's not like Adam Henrique is 36 years old here. This is a guy who's having a very good year. His two-way play is excellent. We just saw that meltdown against the Avs, or against the Ducks for the Avs in Ball Arena. Adam Henrique is the guy who scores the game-winning goal and shuts down Nathan MacKinnon that entire night. Head-to-head, chews up Nathan MacKinnon and spits him out, which almost never happens. Now, Henrique is not an elite defensive center, but he's a good defensive center. He's a good two-way guy. And the thing with him is that he is a good player having a good season on a good contract, and is a overall good fit in Colorado. So none of it is exceptional. The name doesn't jump off the page the way that Ryan O'Reilly does. But yeah, you look at the year that he's having here. You look at his career. It's the model of consistency. And that WAR line is a straight line. You're talking about a guy that he drives play on offensively. He does a good job defensively. He's not aces. He's not Ryan O'Reilly. He's not going to compete for a Selke, but a good player in all phases of the game. And plays against, he's already playing against top competition in Anaheim this year and producing these types of results. He will play easier competition in Colorado with better teammates in more advantageous situations.
I feel like these last two videos that we're doing and talking about Henrique, I feel like this is a guy that we've talked about for several years now at different points, free agency, trade deadline, draft, potential trades. This is a guy that I feel like has made sense here for several years with the way that they like to play. I'm not going to get too far into it because I think AJ just, I think that's all pretty comprehensive as to why he fits here. But this is a guy that I think we've talked about making sense in this type of role for several years in a row now. And now I think the Avs are maybe in a better position to do that than they ever were before.
It never made sense for him as your 3C making $5 million, but now the role that you need, it's a great point. It's a time where you can start saying, hey, if not this deadline, maybe next.
I think the length of his contract has also come down. When you were looking at him as a $6 million almost guy for 4 years, you're like, boy, I don't know if I trust that.
You certainly weren't comfortable with how it was going to age, and now that it's aged, you're like, all right, well, we're at the tail end of it.
And there's just much less risk with one additional year on it than 3.
Absolutely.
So,
and knowing that projecting ahead next year is still a spot on your roster that is
needs
unsettled.
To be filled,
You've got 5 of your 6 top forward spots for next season signed already.
Yep.
They're done.
What does this look like cost-wise?
This is where I just don't know what Anaheim would want. But I think you are probably looking at a first-round pick and maybe Oscar Olausson. this is not a guy you're giving up Sean Barons for.
Right.
For me, I'm not giving up Jean-Luc Foudy for him.
Right. I was gonna say if you're going to if you're talking about a first round pick, I think that's got to be like a pretty mid-level prospect.
I don't know that because of especially if they retain and they use one of their retention slots and it will carry on for next year, that reduces their retention at next year's deadline as well, down to just the 2 spots.
Yeah.
That I think is going to be they're going to say, hey, we're happy to retain whatever, but like you need to. It's for an extra season. This isn't a one-off. In a couple of months, this gets wiped off our books. That's not the case here.
Right.
Because of that, I think it's going to be a touch more expensive than you would think for Adam Henrique.
Right.
It's also the reality of this year's deadline doesn't have a perfect fit. There are pros and cons everywhere.
I think part of that conversation too is the lack of assets the Avs have. They don't have the seconds and thirds to throw around.
Yeah, because this would have been a perfect give them 2 second-round picks.
Yeah.
And maybe if Anaheim is amenable to it, a 2025 second-round pick and Oscar Olausen.
Yeah, you could have a conversation like
that.
Hey,
take our top forward prospect. Because if you are giving up a first-round pick, then maybe you are trying to say, have Sampo Ranta instead.
Right.
Or have Ben Myers instead. Have a more middle-of-the-road guy here. Although I really don't want to trade Ben Myers.
So I was going to ask about that, but I realized this really isn't the time to talk about that because it is a thought that has crossed my mind that in a situation like this, if you're talking about a guy of Henrique's caliber where, you're maybe not reaching to the Sean Barons level prospect yet. I know the Avs have plans for Ben Myers, but could a guy like Ben Myers maybe be intriguing in a situation like this if that saves you on what kind of draft pick you're having to give up because you can sell it as maybe a little bit more polished. Hey, Anaheim, this guy's in your lineup day one.
And that may not be something Anaheim wants. Sure. We don't even know. They acquired Drew Hellison last year. Drew Hellison turned pro. They've kept him in the AHL the entire time.
Who wouldn't want to live in San Diego?
If I'm trying to be in the NHL, it's not the right city.
Yet.
Ever.
Ooh, they should put an NHL team in
If they
San
got to
Diego.
40 teams, they should put one there.
Oh my God, 40 teams. Maybe late in our lives. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying in fantasy land. But anyway, not the point. Henrique, we can bring up his career here. Obviously, he's been around for a good long while.
Was a big part of that Devil's Cup run
back in the early 2010s.
Was it 20? I think it was 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they lost to LA.
Scored some big goals in that series, too.
Yeah, he was. He's been a guy he's just been a good player his whole career. And that's part of the appeal there is that you're not looking for a world beater. You're looking, this is a model of consistency. He's good all the time.
Yeah, I think this is a shorter video because it is a little bit more cut and dry
It's
in
very
the
black
opposite
and,
direction.
Very black and white. Yep. He's a really good player. He's a really good fit.
He's got an extra year.
Cost is definitely a problem, but you are getting it for an extra season.
It really
you
kind
get
of,
him for 2 playoff runs.
Yep. In terms of cost, this really does feel like, we talked about Luke Shen splitting the difference on like a Jack Johnson, Dmitry Kulikov. This feels like splitting the difference on Jonathan Taves and Ryan O'Reilly in terms of what you're being asked to give up.
And you're getting closer to a caliber of player of O'Reilly than you are of Taves.
I would say Henrique is more of a set and forget 2C than Taves is for sure. So the value's good. Obviously, you can see the uptick this year. He's having a pretty good season with the offensive finishing.
Yeah, the goal scoring has been it's been a touch higher so far. Cool. Like, you never know how that's going to translate when a guy leaves an environment and goes to a totally different one.
And you look at the minutes, you can see he's pretty much been a top-end second liner for his whole career.
Yep. Most of his career, this is kind of the role that he's been in, that he would play in Colorado, so it's all very translatable here.
Yep.
There's almost no projection here. You're very comfortable with what you're getting, and you're very comfortable with the character of the guy. You're comfortable that he's a good dude that's going to fit into your locker room, and there's no roller coaster here. There's nothing sexy about this. This is just a good player that makes you better, makes you harder to play against in the postseason because you just roll over one more line, oh my God, here these guys come. You know, it doesn't give you that crazy like dream on it like O'Reilly does, where you're like, oh, so this is.
Do we actually have 2 1Cs?
Yeah,
at that
this
point?
is something, man. Like, oh my God, this is a problem. But he's a good player.
Yeah. Yep.
He's a good player. Let us know who you think the Avs should get at center, whether it's Henrique, Taves, somebody else, one of our other videos. Let us know down in the comments. We appreciate y'all. Like and subscribe. That helps us out a ton here on YouTube. I believe this video should be one of the last ones. We should have one more coming before deadline day. So
As of right now, we have one more coming,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
either way, be sure to join us on deadline day for our deadline and chill stream. We hang out all day, watch all the trades go down. It's an absolute blast. We appreciate you. We'll see you in the next video.